Well, howdy, folks. Clay Steele here. I want to read you some more of the Hank Dillon Bigfoot hunter story. That's a good one. Now, let's get started. See, Hank Dillon was a hunter, a man who knew the wilderness like the back of his hand, until the night he saw something near Red Feather Lakes, a mysterious creature towering in the shadows. Now, no one believed his story, not even Hank himself, really, until a stranger in a tavern shared a similar tale and offered him a reason to keep looking for the truth. Now, deep in the remote Colorado wilderness, Hank is hunting for proof. But something's watching him, too. Join us as we unravel the mystery of the Watcher in the Woods, a chilling tale of obsession, fear, and the search for what lurks just beyond man's vision. Well, The Watcher in the Woods, Part 2. The fire crackled in the crisp morning air, the scent of frying bacon mixed with the rich aroma of coffee, as Hank Dillon sat on a weathered log staring into the flames. The steam curled from his tin mug, rising into the quiet dawn. Somewhere in the distance, a woodpecker rattled against a dead pine, and the sound set a pang of nostalgia through him. He used to have a hunting partner for mornings like this. Not a man, but a dog, old Blue. A stubborn old blue-tick coonhound with a nose for tracking and a heart bigger than his own. For 14 years, Blue had been by his side. From the elk trails of the Rockies to long, cold nights under the stars. That dog had seen him at his best and his worst, had chased mountain lions and stood his ground against bears, and always came trotting back with that same lopsided grin. Hank sighed, poking at the fire with a stick. Yeah, you'd have sniffed him out, wouldn't you, boy? He murmured, thinking about the creature he was searching for. Bigfoot. No matter what folks said, no matter how many people laughed at him, Hank knew that they were out there, in the wilderness, so good at hiding and blending in with their environment that they were rarely ever seen. Only brief glimpses every now and then. He took a slow sip of coffee, his grip tightening around the mug. He wasn't out here to prove it to himself. Not anymore. He knew that Bigfoot was real. He was out here to prove it to everyone else. And this time, he wasn't going to let fear stop him. With Earl's financial backing, Hank was able to get the equipment he needed to photograph and film or kill the beast if it came to that. Now, as the morning light filtered through the trees, Hank sighed and set his mug down. He wanted to stay right here at camp. He wanted to spend the day tracking that elusive beast, but that would just have to wait. Hank had an appointment in Laramie that he didn't want to miss. With a reluctant sigh, he turned back towards the fire, kicking dirt over the last of the embers. Bigfoot would just have to wait. He was finally getting himself a new hunting dog. It takes roughly 2 hours to drive from the location of his campsite to Laramie, Wyoming, and Hank was pushing to get there by 11. He was looking forward to meeting the breeder of what would become his next companion, a little majestic treehound puppy, a breed known for its outstanding hunting and tracking skills, a cross between a coonhound and a bloodhound. Like old Blue on steroids, a friend had told him. He had read about the breed and contacted his friend, Dr. Gene Phillips, a veterinarian in Laramie who knew a reputable breeder who just happened to have a couple of pups available. He would be meeting the breeder today at the vet clinic to pick up his new dog. Crossing the Colorado border into Wyoming, Hank gazed across the wide expanse of rolling plains that led up to the Snowy Range and the Medicine Bow National Forest. He was daydreaming. It was running through his mind the noises he had heard last night while he was in that tent, and the movement that he had seen afterwards. His rational mind wanted to doubt what he thought he saw. It was easy to diminish the events as merely excitement. The thing he'd wanted to see was so deeply embedded in his mind that his mind took shadows and conjured him up into the figure of a Bigfoot. Now, last night he was certain. But now, after a couple cups of coffee and some time on the road, He was once again beginning to doubt himself. He stopped by the side of the road to relieve himself, wishing he hadn't drunk that extra 2 cups of coffee. And off in the distance he watched a coyote stalking a hole in the ground, taking a leap with all 4 feet in the air, then landing on top of the molehill. Unsuccessful, he slowly walked away and gazed over at the truck. "Good luck, buddy," Hank called out and climbed back into his truck. It was just after 11 when Hank pulled up in front of the vet's clinic. There were only a few other vehicles in the parking lot, mostly farm trucks, ranch trucks. He pulled up next to a battered Ford pickup that looked in about the same shape as his. It had seen its fair share of dirt roads. He opened the door to the clinic and a handful of puppies came running to greet him. He got down on a knee and was immediately rewarded with puppy kisses. A nice-looking young woman with long hair pulled back into a ponytail tried to wrangle the pups and keep them from jumping on Hank. "God, I'm so sorry. They're just so excitable at this age," she laughed. "Quite all right," Hank laughed. "One of these little fellas is going home with me today." He stood and the woman held out her hand. "Well, I'm Michelle Rigsby, the breeder of these little rascals. You must be Hank." He nodded his head. "Well, I'm pleased to meet you, ma'am. These are some handsome dogs you got here." "Well, they've all been vet checked for the final time, and they're ready to go. You're the first one here, so you get first pick of the litter." Hank watched the 6 puppies wrestle, chase each other around the office. He thought about his old dog Blue and sent him a silent message. "Old Blue, you tell me which one you think I should choose. No dog is ever going to take the place of you, old buddy. But you do the choosing here." And out of the heap of wrestling puppies, one pretty little one stepped away from the others and ran over to Hank, nuzzling his leg, and then sat herself right down on his boot and closed her eyes. "Well, I guess this little one's chosen me," he said to Michelle. Michelle smiled. "Well, I thought you were looking for a male." "Well, so did I," Hank said, "but old Blue tells me this is the one." Well, now Michelle looked at him quizzically, then decided not to ask him who old Blue was. Just then the bell over the door jingled and another prospective puppy parent walked through the door. The pups all ran in unison to the new person, all except that little sweetheart who lay on Hank's feet. She seemed to be perfectly content staying with her new owner. Gathering this new pup in his arms, Hank thanked Michelle and Dr. Phillips and headed out to his truck. He was just backing out when Michelle came running out. "Hank, wait. I wanted to catch you before you left. Now, Gene told me that you live up at Red Feather Lakes. See, I'm over in Virginia Dale, and, well, I'd love to have you come by sometime and meet the parents of this sweet girl here." "Now, that would be great," Hank replied. Virginia Dale was a very small community about 4 miles south of the Wyoming border, only about 30 minutes from Hank's place. You see, Virginia Dale mostly consisted of a few ranches, but once it was a bustling stop on the Overland Trail. Yeah, you turn at the point of interest sign and you go over the cattle guard. Then you follow that dirt road past the Lazy S Ranch and look for the house with all the goats," Michelle laughed. "How about dinner on Sunday?" Hank laughed. "You gotta love a local girl's directions." "Sure," he said. "How about I call you on Saturday and, well, you can let me know what to bring." She laughed. "You just bring the little one here. I'll take care of the rest." Hank smiled. He watched as Michelle walked back into the vet office. "Well, little girl, we just got ourselves a date. You're already bringing me good luck." Hank rested one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the little hound curled up beside him on the cracked vinyl bench seat of his old pickup truck. This pup was all ears and paws, her deep brown coat marked with black patches, a perfect blend of coonhound and bloodhound. Even now, only a few hours into their journey together, she looked at home, sprawled out, belly up, twitching slightly in some puppy dream. "What am I going to call you, little girl?" Hank mused, his voice gruff but warm. The pup gave a sleepy sigh in response, shifting slightly but never waking. He ran a few names in his head. Daisy? Nah, that's too sweet. Scout? Not bad, but doesn't quite fit. His eyes flicked up the road, stretching out ahead. Miles of open country, flanked by endless skies and rolling hills, backing up to the snow-capped peaks. His mind drifted back to what had led him here in the first place. Not just the need for a good hunting dog, but that thing in the woods. The reason he'd left his camp so reluctantly. Sasquatch, he muttered under his breath, a smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. The pup's ears twitched, and for some reason the name stuck in his head. Sasquatch. Sassy, for short. Hank glanced down at the sleeping hound. Sassy? He said, testing it out. The pup cracked open one eye and let out a tiny, lazy yawn, stretching her legs before curling back up. Hank chuckled. Yeah, I think that suits you just fine. With that, he reached over, giving her a gentle scratch behind the ears as the truck rumbled down the highway. Hank and Sassy, why, that's got a nice ring to it. He smiled. We're going to be a good team, you and I. After crossing the Colorado state line, Hank began noticing a few ranch homes spread out along the highway and found himself thinking about Michelle's offer for Sunday dinner. Slowing down to turn on North County Road 43F, he found the Lazy S Ranch sign in the cattle guard. Just look for the goats, she had said. Well, it seemed easy enough. Hank pressed his boot against the gas, and the old farm truck humming beneath him as he turned onto the two-lane highway heading home. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the land in shades of gold and rust, and Sassy shifted beside him, stretching her long legs before settling again, her soft puppy snores barely audible over the rumble of the engine. He glanced down at her, a grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. You're going to be something special, girl, he murmured. But first things first, we got to get you stretched out and let you do your business before you turn my truck into a mess. Up ahead, a dirt pull-off near a cluster of tall, quaking aspen looked like as good a spot as any. Hank eased the truck onto the shoulder and cut the engine and stepped out, stretching his legs. He scooped her up, setting her down on the soft earth. The little hound sniffed the air, then took off in an awkward gallop, her nose to the ground, tail wagging like crazy. Yeah, you got the nose for it all right, Hank chuckled, watching her explore. As she nosed through the brush, his thoughts drifted to the days ahead. Training wouldn't be easy. A hunting dog, a real hunting dog, took patience, discipline, and trust. Sassy had big paws to fill, stepping into the place where old Blue had once been. But Hank had a feeling about her, and if she was half as stubborn as she was curious, why, she'd make one heck of a tracker. He leaned against the truck, arms crossed, eyes scanning the tree line just out of habit. That old itch returned, the one that whispered of something watching from the woods. Sassy let out a tiny, playful bark, snapping him from his thoughts. He pushed off the truck, clapping his hands. Come on, girl, let's get home. As she bounded towards him, ears flopping, he scooped her up, settling her back on the bench seat beside him. Now back at the cabin, Hank wasted no time settling Sassy in. A little pup had been full of energy the moment they stepped out of the truck, sniffing every inch of the porch, the yard, and even his boots, for letting out a happy bark and tumbling over her own big paws. Inside, she claimed a spot by the fireplace, curling up on an old wool blanket Hank had set out for her. You better not get used to the easy life, he chuckled, scratching behind her ears. You're here to work, little girl. But as Sassy drifted into another deep puppy sleep, belly rising and falling with soft snores, Hank just had to admit, he was already damn fond of her. The next morning, Hank took Sassy out for her first real taste of the wilderness. The mountains behind his cabin were dense with pine and aspen, the ground still damp from the early spring thaw. He wanted to see what she had in her. At first, Sassy trotted alongside him, distracted by everything. The sounds of birds overhead, the scurry of a chipmunk, even the wind rustling through the trees. But after about a half a mile, something seemed to click. She dropped her nose to the ground and started weaving back and forth, her long ears nearly dragging in the dirt as she worked the scent trail. "Well, look at you," Hank murmured, watching as she suddenly froze, tail up, nose pointed, toward a patch of thick brush. A moment later, a startled rabbit bolted out and Sassy let out a high-pitched bay, her little legs scrambling after it. Hank let her chase it for a second before giving a sharp whistle. "Sassy, come!" To his surprise, she skidded to a stop, looked back at him, and, after only a moment's hesitation, trotted back to him. He knelt down as she reached him, ruffling the loose skin around her neck. "That's my girl," he said, pride swelling in his chest. "You got it in you, don't you?" Now, by the second day, Hank had no doubt. Sassy had the instincts of a born tracker. They hiked deeper into the woods this time, following an old game trail that twisted along the ridgeline. Sassy stayed close, her nose in the dirt, working the scents like she'd been doing it her whole life. About an hour in, she suddenly stiffened. Her body went rigid, her nose pointing toward a set of tracks in the damp soil. Deer, most likely. Hank crouched beside her, running a calloused hand over the imprints. "You find something, girl?" Sassy sniffed again, but then instead of moving forward, she let out a soft whine, her ears pressing back slightly. Hank frowned. That was different. "What is it?" She backed up a step, glancing up at him, then back at the trees ahead. Hank followed her gaze, feeling that familiar prickle at the base of his neck. The woods were still, too still. Something about the air had changed, the way it always did when he felt like he wasn't alone. Sassy stayed close to his leg, no longer interested in the deer trail. Hank exhaled slowly. "All right, girl, let's head on back." He gave one last glance into the woods before turning towards home. Boy, that Sassy had a hell of a nose on her. And maybe, just maybe, she'd already picked up on something Hank had been hunting for a long, long time. It was a dark, cloudless night. Hank dozed in his recliner, Sassy curled up against his legs, sleeping soundly. The clock on the wall read just past midnight when Hank's cell phone buzzed on the table beside the chair. The terror-filled voice on the other end of the line sent a chill through him. "Hank, please. Something's out there. Something big." Michelle's voice cracked with panic. "My goats are panicked, and my dogs just took off after it. I can't get them to come back." Hank was already on his feet, shoving his boots on. "You call the sheriff?" he asked, grabbing his coat. Yeah, they're sending a car, but Fort Collins is over an hour away. You're closer. Please, Hank. I don't know what that thing was." Hank grabbed his rifle from the rack and slung it over his shoulder. Sassy stirred, sensing the tension, her floppy ears perking up. "I'm on my way," he said firmly. "I'll be there in 20. He hung up, heart hammering in his chest. He'd heard that kind of fear before, and he had a feeling Michelle hadn't just seen a mountain lion or a bear. No, this was something else. Something bigger. Sassy whined as he opened the door, and Hank picked her up and carried her to the truck. "Come on, girl." He climbed into his truck, the engine roaring to life as he tore down the dark, winding road toward Michelle's ranch. Some 20 minutes later, Hank's gut clenched as he pulled up in Michelle's cabin. His headlights swept across the yard, illuminating the chaos. Her front door hung off the hinges, broken clean through as though something had rammed it with inhuman force. A window was broken, and the porch light cast eerie shadows over the churned-up dirt, and deep, heavy prints led towards the tree line. He cut the engine, stepping out slowly, rifle in hand. "Michelle," he called out. No answer. No movement inside. The goats bleated in distress from their pen, their eyes wide and rolling with fear. Hank swallowed hard, stepping up onto the porch, his boots crunching over shattered glass. His breath came in steady, but his pulse pounded against his ribs. He had seen animal attacks before, bears, mountain lions, but this was different. This wasn't just a break-in. This was something angry. He crossed the threshold cautiously, sweeping his gaze over the cabin's interior. The lights were on, casting an unnatural stillness over the overturned furniture. A chair lay on its side, a plate was shattered on the kitchen floor, and a half-drunk cup of coffee sat on the counter, the liquid inside still warm. But no Michelle. Hank's grip tightened around his rifle. "Michelle!" he called again, louder this time. Still nothing. Then, a sound. "Hank?" It sounded like the voice was coming from far away. Hank looked for a trapdoor, but he didn't see anything obvious. "Michelle, where are you?" "Out here," the voice called. Hank stepped back outside and began walking around the side of the cabin. At the back of the house, there was an underground root cellar built down into the ground. "Michelle? In here," she called. I can't get the door open. It's stuck." Well, Hank leveraged his foot against the cement casing and pulled at the door until he got it to budge. Lifting the door to the side, he reached inside, gave Michelle his hand to pull her out. "I never used this. The backside's caved in and it's breeding nest for snakes and black widows," she said disgustedly as she crawled out. "What happened?" Hank asked her. In a frantic voice, Michelle cried, "Well, I heard the goats making all kinds of racket. I got a flashlight to see what was going on. There was a mountain lion. It had gotten in the pen with the goats. The dogs were barking, the goats were screaming, and I was trying to get the dogs away so the cat wouldn't get them. And then this gigantic black, massive, I don't know what the hell it was, some kind of bear or whatever, came crashing through the trees right over there and chased that cat right up to the house. He fought the cat, and then I don't know, somehow the cat jumped right through the window, or maybe threw it through the window. Then he went after it, right through the door. But he was too big, and I heard the wood splinter, and I ran as fast as I could to the root cellar and hid down here. But then I heard you drive up, and I couldn't get the door open." Hank put his arms around Michelle and gave her a reassuring hug. "Well, you're okay. Whatever was here, it's gone now." "Yeah, the dogs chased him off into the woods," Michelle cried. "The cat and that thing." Hank turned as two squad cars' headlights washed over the yard, the red and the blue lights a-flashing. Two officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters as they took in the scene. "You two all right? What happened here?" the older of the two officers, whose badge read McAllister, asked. His eyes narrowed as he took in the broken door, the shattered window, and Michelle's wide-eyed, disheveled state. Michelle took a deep, shuddering breath. "Well, I already told dispatch. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was huge. Bigger than any bear I've ever seen. It came barreling out of those trees and went straight for the mountain lion that was in my goat pen. Then all hell broke loose." Now the younger deputy, Simmons was his name, shined his flashlight at the ground, following the deep tracks that led from the forest to the cabin. "Yeah, these prints are fresh," he was muttering. Hank, still standing protectively beside Michelle, nodded grimly. "Look at the size of them," he said, gesturing to the massive, deep impressions in the dirt. "Those aren't bear tracks." Sheriff McAllister sighed, rubbing his jaw as he scanned the trees with his high-beam flashlight. "We've been getting some weird calls lately. Cat took down a horse over at Glacier View recently, and we got some livestock missing. Lots of call about strange noises in the woods. Now this." Now Deputy Simmons followed the trail with his light towards the trees. "You think it's worth tracking?" Hank exchanged a look with Michelle. Her dogs had gone after whatever it was, but they hadn't come back yet. His gut told him they'd find something out there. McAllister exhaled sharply, then motioned towards the woods. "I'm not going after no damn bear in the dark. I suggest you stay at your friend's house tonight, miss, at least until you get your front door and your window fixed, then we'll send someone out in the morning to take a look around. When it's light enough to see what the hell we're dealing with here." Hank glanced at Michelle, squeezing her shoulder. "You can stay at my house as long as you need to. I can fix your door tomorrow, and we can at least board up the window till we can get a glass company out here." She nodded, still rattled but steadying herself. I need to get my dogs back." Hank handed her his truck keys. "Tell you what, my pup's in the truck. Sassy's her name. You can get whatever you need to take with you and put it in there. Then sit with her and keep the doors locked. And if you see anything at all, you honk the horn. I'll take another look around and I'll see if I can find the dogs." Sheriff McAllister radioed back to dispatch, letting them know that they were headed back to Fort Collins and would return in the morning. Hank checked his rifle, chambering around before glancing back at Michelle. "Be careful," she said. He gave her a reassuring nod before turning towards the darkness of the forest. "Now hold on there," McAllister told Hank. "I don't think you should be going out there alone." "Well, then come along with me," Hank replied. McAllister sighed and shrugged his shoulders. "Damn it. Well, just hold on a minute. Simmons, get your gear. We're going just a short distance up that trail to call the dogs, and if they don't come in 5 minutes, now we're just going to have to leave it till tomorrow." Begrudgingly, the three men moved towards the tree line, following the deep tracks left in the damp earth, visible in the bright beams of their flashlights. The woods were eerily silent. No crickets, no night birds. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Hank crouched near a particularly deep print, shining his headlight on it, and snapped a photo. "Yeah, too big for a bear. Well, a bit too heavy for a cat. And look here." He pointed to the elongated shape of the front pad. "This thing walked on 2 legs." McAllister swore under his breath. "I don't like this," he said. "Not one damn bit." A sudden, distant howl echoed through the trees. Not a wolf, not a coyote. It was a deep, guttural, unnatural, the kind of sound that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up on end. Then another sound. A sharp, pained yelp. Michelle's dogs. "They're in trouble," Hank said, already moving. The 3 men pushed deeper into the forest, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. The trail wound through the trees, leading them to a rocky outcropping just beyond a small creek. And then they saw it. The first dog lay on his side, bleeding and whimpering, struggling to stand. The second dog stood guard over his mate, growling. Hank's gut churned. "It's okay, boy, it's okay. We're here to help you. Shh, 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 shh." He held his hands out and inched towards the dogs, gently talking to them. The male stepped back and let Hank pick up that injured female. McAllister swallowed hard. "Well, we need to get out of here, now." But before they could move, the woods around them went deathly still. Then came the sound. Low, guttural breathing. And it was right behind them.
Well, there's a cliffhanger for you. I hope you'll come back next week and hear the rest of the story. This is Hank Dillon, Bigfoot Hunter, a Hidden Corners exclusive. So until next week, have a great week, everyone.
Hey folks, Clay Steele here. You know, I spend a lot of time outdoors around this here campfire. If you're like me, you get downright annoyed by all those pesky mosquitoes buzzing around. They're just looking for a free meal. Nothing ruins a good night under the stars faster than slapping and scratching at bites. And that's why I keep the B-itch Stop. I keep it handy. One swipe and that itch is gone. No more burning, no more scratching, just good old relief. Made right here in Nevada with all natural ingredients. It's safe for the whole family. So if you're tired of being a mosquito buffet, do yourself a favor and get you some B-itch Stop today. And this is Clay Steele. Watch out for them bugs. Hey folks, Clay Steele here. You know, I spend a lot of time outdoors around this here campfire. If you're like me, you get downright annoyed by all those pesky mosquitoes buzzing around. They're just looking for a free meal. Nothing ruins a good night under the stars faster than slapping and scratching at bites. And that's why I keep the bee itch stop. I keep it handy. One swipe and that itch is gone. No more burning, no more scratching, just good old relief. Made right here in Nevada with all natural ingredients. It's safe for the whole family. So if you're tired of being a mosquito buffet, do yourself a favor and get you some bee itch stop today. And this is Clay Steele. Watch out for them bugs.